Hello, everyone. A bit of a technical difficulty with Zoom getting streamed up onto the YouTube, but it looks like we're all good and going live now. So I'm going to kick it over first to Spartan Grown.
Thanks, Jack. I'm Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram, all one word, Spartan Grown. No spaces, nothing after Spartan Grown. Lots of copiers out there. Um, and if you don't do the Instagram, you can shoot me a message on just the email at spartangrown@gmail.com for all of your gardening questions. Or if you have any LED questions, you can shoot those over to me at russ@gmlarmy.com. Be happy to help you.
We're happy to have you back. I'm just getting my live chat going over here so that we can do a little bit of chat Q&A. So if you do have questions, feel free to go ahead and drop those in the live comments here. We are live on YouTube. I'm going to pass it over next to our only other panelist with us this evening is the American one. Cheers, Tal.
Cheers, Jack and Spartan. Always good to see you boys on panel. Good to see everyone in chat. I am the American one on the YouTube and the American one underscore with underscore Keens on the IG. Most of you know me from chats and everywhere, and hit me up on the IG if you want anything. And yeah, it's good to be here.
It's good to have you back. And yeah, just chilling here. We were talking a little bit before the show, and I lost track of time, and it was like 4:01, and I went to click go live, and then it says you do not have permission to go live, which usually means I got the little pre-title up a little bit too early, like 10 or 15 minutes before the show goes live. If I do that, sometimes it'll tell me I don't have permission. I have to exit out, rewrite the title, and then go live. And sure enough, second time's a charm, but here we are. And yeah, tonight we're going to be taking some chat questions and hopefully answering as many as possible. At the second hour mark, Tao is going to get running, but me and Spartan will hold down the fort and we'll do a little bit of an open panel with whoever likes to jump in at that point. I'll share the Zoom link to join live with us here on YouTube. But yeah, till then, I guess I could pass it first to Tao and ask, what are you smoking on with us tonight, and how are things in the garden?
I'm uh I'm actually smoking on someone who gifted me something from the chats and the YouTube shows. Yeah, Maid of Honor. This one is, which is very tasty. And someone also sent me a sample of that I tried with of something called Humboldt Humboldt pound cake. Yeah, Humboldt pound cake, which is very tasty and nice nugs. Both of them very nice nug formations. I would say dense, not too dense, and yeah, that's what I'm smoking on. And my garden is still not up to 100% where I would want it to be, but it's all my plants are happier, and yeah, that's what's happening there.
I can definitely relate to you on the not where I want it to be. I just had to cut one of my plants. I said that my Project V F2 has sort of become a stress tester. And one of them was, it just was too far gone after my vacation where I forgot to water it before I left. With being busy with so many other things, excited to go see the in-laws and have a little holiday vacation. But when I got home, the one, it was just like, yeah, it was too far gone. The other one has bounced back nicely. So I'm gonna go something that I haven't done yet. Maybe just one plant in the earth box this time. And so I'm gonna veg that one out a little bit longer, train it up a little bit. I'm foliar feeding some amino acids and some like calcium and stuff like that to get it really happy and healthy. And probably gonna transplant this week for sure, and then hopefully get it to fill out a little bit more of my flower tent and let it rip, see what it can do. I'm excited because the one my neighbor grew that is already flowered smelled really, really good despite being tiny. Sun grown here in San Diego, so I was impressed. It had some strong gas to it, like strong, almost like gasoline, which surprised me a little bit, being that it was Vortex. But I don't know if it's just like it knows it's in Southern California, needs to bring that gas, but definitely some citrus notes.
Yeah, it's definitely like for me on the different like what I've seen in the vortex of all the ones I've popped and then the Project V's as well, which are the F2s, is I'm seeing a lot of in the F1s, I've been seeing a lot of either funkiness, like rotten, just nastiness, mango-y, like rotten mango, or like sugary, like sweet, citrusy, really good, lemony. Really, I get some lemon phenos too. But then in the F2s, some of this weird berry stuff has been coming out. Like when we did the pheno hunt, we've been getting a lot of them that are smelling berry like, which I have no idea where that's coming from.
It's always weird, man, when an F2, you can get some of the grandparent genetics that start to spring up and like 1 out of 16 in the recessive when you look at the Punnett squares, like the big B, little b for like eye color is usually a common example. But there's recessive traits that are passed on from grandparent generations and things like that that start to spring up. And I saw a little bit of that with the Velvet Punch F2s, not so much in the F3, which is actually kind of cool to see that it does become more stable as you make selections down the line. But I want to take a second to welcome Brandon Rust, who joined us just a few moments after we did our introduction. So cheers, Brandon.
Cheers, everybody. I'm Brandon Russ, and one thing that really grinds my gears is raisins and trail mix. I hate the goddamn shit. It's just a goddamn filler. Nobody wants raisins and trail mix.
Oh man, yeah. I think we can all get on that bandwagon. I guess some people will say the grape lobby will say they're good for something, I guess, but I've never been a huge raisin fan. I like actual grapes, but something about raisins once they get to that point. Maybe it's just that big brand that I feel like everybody's got that the little lady with like the sun in the background. I can't think of whatever the fuck the brand is. But yeah, that one has never done it for me. So maybe there's other raisins out there that are higher quality.
The California raisins, man. I remember them back in the day, had commercials and dancing and shit across the screen.
They got good
Dude, they
marketing.
bad. Raisins were so bad that they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to make them try to appear good. But raisins are crap. I don't care what anybody
They
says.
How
package them in
about
those tiny
cinnamon
little
raisin
cardboard
bread?
box. Raisin bread, different
Cinnamon
story.
raisin bread is
Different
something
story.
I can get
I like
behind
that. Yeah,
every
I like
I'll
yeah,
raisins.
fuck
every
with some raisin
winter.
bread,
There you
but
go.
that's all sugar, bro.
Yeah, that is all sugar and some cinnamon. Yeah, sugar and
Yeah.
spice, everything nice. It tastes
Carbs
all
are,
day.
gonna turn into sugar anyway, so it's just like you're really feeding yourself a bunch of
You get an
garbage there.
oatmeal. How about an
So,
oatmeal raisin cookie?
Diabetes,
You
what?
not eating an oatmeal raisin cookie, Brandon? Are you? I mean, I love oatmeal raisin cookies. They're so fucking good.
I completely derailed the cultivation conversation. And
Yeah, but no, I gotta get behind
This
no,
is the
no. We
attack
don't need
on.
no oatmeal raisin cookies. Let's go strictly chocolate chip. Just
Well,
chocolate chip would work. Yeah.
I like chocolate chip too, but I'm not going to turn down an oatmeal raisin. I will eat the shit out of
Brandon is boycotting raisins, and the rest of us, I think, will make up our minds for ourselves. But Brandon, what are you smoking on
Thank you.
tonight? No one ever says I
uh,
got them raisin terps. I'll say that.
yeah, right. Okay, I've got some Deep Deuce Daryl, which is garlic cookies times 12 monkeys. I'm also smoking on some Gorilla Glue, and I smoked some Lime Rider, which is Afghani Bull Rider times Black Lime Reserve. The weed is actually pretty bad. Like it doesn't smell good. It doesn't have good flavor. It doesn't look good, but it fucking put me to fucking sleep. I smoked it, and like 10 minutes later, dude, I took a fucking 2 hour nap.
Sounds like it's some
But
heavy
no,
stuff.
That's something to hold on to. Hell yeah.
now I'm
You're
not
normally
gonna.
not like a sedating or like indica guy, right? So is the Afghani bull rider typically a little bit on the heavier end? And
Uh,
is it something that you just avoid typically, and maybe that's why it's hitting you harder?
this weed I avoid because it's just not very good. It was just a tester. I grew it out. I was like, ooh, this is fucking mids. Um, and it's not the grower because everything else is fire. It's just the weed. The genetics are not good on that. It's just again, it's a tester. But the Afghani bull rider itself, it doesn't look that pretty. But it's got that terpene punch to it where it really kicks you in the face, and it's got this great flavor. The flavor it tastes like you're smoking hash with like that's been infused with it'd be akin to smoking hookah. Like it's like a hashy hookah hit. Um, but the effect is really where it's at on that one. It's really really strong. So I only smoke it at nighttime. And if I smoke it, I'm too groggy. I just get too groggy. So it's a nighttime thing for me. Carly
Sounds like
loves it.
sounds like good stuff. My wife's really into the heavier stuff as well, day, night, or whenever. Could be right when she wakes up in the morning, hitting some heavy OGs and like chems and yeah, I even feel like Gorilla Glue, if you take it long, can be a little bit on the sedating end, but it's more of a hybrid for
So
me.
good.
Yeah, I've got like 50-50 candy terps versus like, you know, I guess they would be kind of the base of them would be kind of cam, GMO, Gorilla Glue, Limarilla.
Want
So
to give a second for Noah the Grower to go ahead and introduce himself. So he just jumped in.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sorry I'm a little bit late. Yeah, I'm Noah Grower on Instagram. Just did a post there a couple days ago and happy to be here.
Was looking fire, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. It was looking like a darker one, maybe a purple, super
Yeah,
frosty.
yeah, it's like a wedding cake cross. It's pretty good.
Good stuff. I'm smoking some Cake Crashers tonight, mixed with a little sample I got of some Burmese, which was actually some pretty good shit. I got a lot done. When you actually come across a sativa that's like a real sativa, that's not like some bullshit fake sativa or sativa hybrid that's like really two indicas that they're just calling sativa hybrid to try and push it in the market. But yeah, this Burmese was got a lot of shit done. Clean me and my wife's bongs, the vape, the hose, like all the little components and everything. So I got like a fresh whip. All my stuff is up to snuff. So
Well, you got that focus, get focused in on it, and just couldn't stop.
it was
How'd
one
you-
of those things. It's just like I had my schedule just changed up a little bit recently because there was like winter breaks and things like that. So I worked a lot more than I usually do for a little while, and then now I'm working a little bit less than I usually do. So it's I had a day where I don't normally have a big open gap, and watched a little bit of football actually, and
Nice.
unfortunately got to see my family's favorite Cleveland Browns get knocked out of the playoffs. But
Oh,
yeah, unfortunate. They're almost never there, so I'm not that upset about it. And most people don't get too much about sports here, and those that
it's,
do,
I'm
yeah.
not huge into sports. But if I pick one sport, it's going to be football. And if I'm going to watch football, I want to watch college football over pros. But I am in Michigan, and I am a Lions fan. And just from Michigan to you, Jack, thank God for the Cleveland Browns because otherwise we'd be the worst goddamn team out there. So
Hey, the Browns never went 0-16. I did see that
that's
0-16.
true.
Detroit Lions season. I actually grew up a Packer fan because I was a big Brett Favre fan, and he's kind of fallen greatly from glory
There's a lot of
since then.
Packer fans here in Michigan too, because that was the team that's close to us that actually wins. So, but no, Lions
Yep.
are doing good this year.
Yeah, they kind of bounce back and forth, but getting back on the garden topics, I am excited that my speaking of bouncing back, my Project V or Vortex F2 is bouncing back for sure. Thankfully, to a lot of good Bokashi Earthworks products, the Amino N Plus, like I mentioned earlier, and probably gonna hit it with some Calcium after that as a follow up. But it's nice to be able to see a plant that was like clearly mistreated and abused, starting to
you
bounce
should
back, green up
you should put those two together.
at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Because what'll happen is when you have the amino acids with the calcium, you'll get uh you'll get a there's like you get a better transport of calcium across the root.
I was even considering I usually foliar the amino N plus, and do you ever foliar the Calcio plus?
I have, yeah, I have. Actually, somebody else told me about it. They're like, oh yeah, I've been using it on my clones, and my clones love it. They pop these huge roots, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And so I tried it out. It will leave residue because it's not completely soluble, like something like Epsom salt, for instance. Very soluble, won't leave residue. The calcium silica is not it's not super soluble. It's not as soluble as some of the other micro like the it's not as soluble as like a micronutrient sulfate, for instance.
Good stuff. Cheers to our homies listening in Cape Town. Said big ups from Cape Town. Gotta love the
Nice.
shout outs from all over the world. It's always cool to see the
Better
international listening.
give me
Hey,
some
I
Durban poison. I want some Durban poison from Cape Town, man.
Real fucking Durban is the good shit, man. That's I was talking about good sativas, real sativas. That's definitely one of them. That'll help you get some shit done. Good flavor. A lot of modern stuff that is kind of like that. If you can't find real Durban, I feel like
Oh, I know. I
True
got
Jack Herrera's and sometimes there's a few others, but yeah, Jack is definitely in the same vein for me as a Durban.
there's a place in Ann Arbor, Michigan called Winewood Organics. I'm shouting them out. Favorite place to go if I got to go somewhere to buy weed. And it's they have a Durban there. and they're a micro business, so they grow it there, and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't leave the building until the customer buys it and walks out with it. So I love that. But yeah, they got a Durban there, and it's awesome. But it's like you got to be good. You got to like go on their website and make sure they got it, because when they harvest it, they don't have it like for a super long time. A lot of people go there for it, I think.
Yeah, sometimes the stuff that is really good doesn't stick around, and you have to wait a little while until the next batch comes through. And especially with like the longer flowering stuff, it's there's only so much of it. I do think that it's worth more per pound if people are willing to grow it. It seems like Aaron the grower is actually one of those people. I hope he gets back on the show here sometime and talks a little bit about his sort of different methodology, because
I'll
his
text him.
fast flowering sounds good. Yeah. I'd love to have him back on at least once here sometime soon. But his what he made a post about, like his fast finishers were like 9 weekers. And that's like a long finisher for a lot of commercial market people. And then he had like 11, 12, 13, maybe even 14 weekers. And so that's definitely going against the grain. But to stand aside from the rest of the market, I think you have to do things differently. And sometimes the craft comes not only in cultivation technique and style, but in cultivar selection and taking it that extra week, 2, 3, or 4, and allowing those, not only terpenes, but cannabinoids and other minor esters, aldehydes, ketones, flavonoids, all the other things that make a cultivar special shine. And I think few are really doing that. So that might be something to, explore and talk about with him. I haven't really seen too many questions or copied any over yet. So if you guys do see any, try and copy them into the
I was
Zoom
just
chat.
seeing Dirty in chat was saying that he's got some seeds, some Durban seeds. So I was just typing in there that I would be very interested in that. So hopefully he hits me up. Hell, I'll trade you, man. I got all kinds of seeds.
I've got some Durblime from AK Bean Brains.
And what's
Uh,
the cross on that?
Durban and shit. I can't fucking remember. Was just going through all my seeds too, because I was organizing everything. Because I have a ton of stuff that I've made that I also haven't released, and I have packages of all the old stuff that I did release, and I had stuff in there that hadn't even been cleaned, so I cleaned everything up because it's been I didn't go in to the office yesterday because it's fucking so goddamn cold and shit, and so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna chill. And so I went through all my seeds, got everything all fucking packaged up all nice, started popping, a bunch of the old stuff that I had.
what is cold there in Oklahoma? Because I know it's kind of relative.
Well, right now it's 1 degree.
I'd say
Yeah,
it's
it's
officially cold. When you're below freezing.
cold,
Yeah, it's been
cold no matter
minus.
where you are.
It was
Almost.
minus most of the day here, unfortunately. -2, -3.
Because I said I was cold to my brother who's in Ohio still, and they're in like the negatives. And I just watched like a Kansas City game the other night, and they're in the negatives too. It was like negative, I think like 20 or 30 there in Kansas City. And
Be
our low was
negative
like
tomorrow.
44.
Yeah, we'll be -9 tomorrow, I think.
I don't miss it.
So
I
I
mean,
want to
I
shout
was
out.
born in it, raised in Ohio, so I got negative,
Yeah.
15 to negative 50s in the real bad
Oh,
winters.
I
I want
want
to
him to
shout out
go.
AK Bean Brains because all the gear that I ever grew out from him was solid, and I think he has unique stuff because from what I understand, for a long time, it was like just doing his own thing up in Alaska and not really paying attention to much of what was going on in the real world, quote, the real world.
One of the things that I look at is timeline for when a lot of the people's work, like if you look at people's work, the timeline from when they started, what did they have access to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's cool things for me. AK Green Brains has stuff that a lot of people didn't have access to just because it's so old. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So he's got original OG genetics. He's got, or not like OG Kush genetics, but I mean he's got
Old
OG in
school.
his,
Like
and he's
Montezuma, Thunderfuck or whatever. Some people call it Alaska Thunderfuck,
Yeah,
MTF
but
or
like
ATF.
other things as well, like Williams Wonder, that's the real deal, shit like that.
Old Northern
yeah,
Lights crosses.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good old
Yep. PK.
blueberries,
Yep. Yep.
PK, NL5 hazes.
Yep.
So yeah, I would
You
say
know, it's cool because I think there's so many people that are using the same stuff. And here's a crazy thing, dude. Again, I think we talked about it last week, but that viroid, that more infectious viroid,
mhm,
uh, man, if everybody's also using the same stuff in their lines, that's it become the older stuff becomes even more increasingly valuable because they have less chance of having been contaminated with fucking
the new
top
shit.
late, yeah, with the new shit. But also, it's all pre cookies, dude. You know, too. It's all pre cookie stuff. I think there's a lot of bottleneck and stuff because all these
Free
fucking
cookies, pre gelato, free all that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of the stuff's good. I've got some Joker's candy and some great gas and some, sweet stuff, but it's just not the business, bro. It's not like it's cool for flavor for like smoking, but it just real heads know, dude, when it comes to fucking high in effect.
I think a lot of people are going back to older school genetics and stuff that like before we had 40% THC allegedly type cultivars. And I just saw something that said 85% of stuff in like the California market that gets actually third party tested is over marked on the label. 85%. And only like 12 out of 36 labs now are currently still in operation because like sting operations that have been done to do quality assurance are showing that a lot of them are falsifying their numbers. So in that race to the top, I think a lot of people selected artificially high testing things. Even they might have been 30%, but it was like, oh, maybe it's 35 and we can get it to test 40 or something like that. But they're losing a lot of the terps and the other, cannabis, like when you read about it back in the high times, back in the days, they'd talk about how there's 200 or 1,000 or however many different chemicals that are making up cannabis. It wasn't just like THC. We focused on THC. That was a big part of it. But there's so many other things in there that made these like 15% strains some of the best smoking, like the shit that'll make you giggle and high for hours and hours. And I think a lot of people, I think, attributed that maybe falsely to, and even myself, maybe lower tolerance when we started smoking. Like, oh, you'll never get highs when you did for your first time or like back in higher middle school or whatever, even if the weed is like better, so to speak, with all the cultivation techniques and lighting methods and this and that. But like, I still personally prefer my favorite smoke almost all comes from like Humboldt County, Mendo, sun grown, greenhouse. Uh, some of the most terpy, flavorful, enjoyable, unique, different highs. There's, I think, even when we go federal, like there's no mistake that that area became known for great cannabis, and there's so much to it. The weather, the culture, from like young kids being part of the, weed scene from their parent and their grandparent, and so many amazing people up there from God, like Mean Gene from Mendocino, Adam 2020, Nat, Humboldt Seed Company, the Mendo Dope Boys, Green Shock Farms. The list goes on and on and on. There's a legacy, but it's just like that area is also special. Like even the no name, I hate to say it, but like people that aren't even on Instagram or people that might be on Instagram but only have like 10 to 200 followers or something like that. But they have a little patch or a little greenhouse and a little section in Humboldt or Mendo and they're growing some shit in the sun that's way better than a lot of the stuff that's being marketed on Instagram to hundreds of thousands of followers and hyped in the clubs in LA or wherever. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's a reckoning upon us of brands closing up shop because they can't continue to sell into this really competitive market. And then there's some scrappy little groups like Mendo Dope and Green Shock Farms and others that make it work with, the old school methods. So I think that there's something to maybe looking back into pre-cookie genetics and old school ways, sun-grown outdoor greenhouse.
Some people don't even, some people look at cookie as new genetics. And people go, wait, people are like, you remember way back to cookies? And it's like, it's not. That's new to a lot of people that have been doing this for a long time. I want to answer a question in the chat real quick. Hillbilly Herb, he asked me if there's any grow tips for my Orange Dream Haze. Is it a big stretcher? The Yes, it can be. The Orange Dream Haze genetics is not it's not a haze. There's no haze in it. The Orange Dream Haze was Jilly Bean from TGA Genetics crossed to Micanopy something. I can't remember the second part of it. That plant,
Madness.
Micanopy Madness, that which was a Florida strain, I guess, and that strain, Orange Dream Haze, was gifted to me, and I used and I crossed that to my Vortex, and I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, that strain. So that cross, that Vortex cross with that Micanopy Madness and Jelly Bean, it still can be very orangey, which is cool. It picks up a lot of the citrus too from the Vortex side, so you got citrus on both sides. But I'm growing out actually two of them right now. I have them probably week five or six in flower, but they're not long flowering strains like you would expect in with a name like Orange Dream Haze. That's why I haven't named it yet. I'm still, like I said, I'm still growing them out and trying to figure out what all's in there so I can come up with a name, because I don't want to continue the name of haze into it because it's not a true haze. It's not a long flowering. It'll probably go 9 weeks on average. And but it is a big, vigorous plant that will, once you get it into flower, it will take a lot of food. If you want to give it, if you want to feed a little heavy, it will go ahead and take it. And it builds pretty tight bud sites, little bud sites, and it builds kind of like the cattail. When you look at buds, it's kind of like, I call it the cattail kind of style buds. Well, if they fill in, it's just like one nice bud instead of having the golf balls where they're separated out. So I hope that answered some of your questions there. I
I
would say
found
I
a
would expect at least a double in stretch, if not maybe 150%, depending on environmentals.
So I found a post on Overgrow, and I'm just reading quickly. It says Micanopy Madness, Micanopy Madness. Okay, I was working in Florida in the early 90s, Gainesville to be accurate. I had a couple of dates. This is a post by Green Boy, Bhoy. Um, but they go on to talk about this fantastic weed, and they're describing it as the Micanopy Madness. It is insane. I don't know if it still exists, never came across it again, but I sure would love to find it. And here we go, Seed Finder. There's information. Boom. It's an Australian strain. That's what I was going to say. I think it was Australian when I heard it initially, but it made it to Florida by fame. But old Australian strain, it says maybe pure Thai, maybe a mix between Thai and Colombian. Shanti Baba is the breeder from Mr. Nice. He worked with Greenhouse Seed Company for a while. And the quote from Shanti Baba says, the seed I used was from original seed grown in northern, north, southwest, or an SW, that might be a part of Australia, sorry, in the late 70s and 80s, of which some was referred to it as Mullumbimby madness. So there's a whole bunch of different names apparently. What I considered a Thai Colombian inbreed line from a fellow grower who had it growing to himself and collected the seed. From those places that his travels were, they're similar viewed as Mullum madness, so it depends on who you spoke to at the time. To answer the bit about Mullumbimby madness, well, that was one of my strains that I worked in the late 70s and early 80s when I lived in a small village called Main Arm between Byron Bay and Kyogle Lismore. This is still Shanti Baba's quote. There was a few legends helping out all together, and we hit something incredible. I still have that as one of the seed stocks that we grow for personal use. It was basically a three-quarter sativa, which is a huge tree, perfect to grow in that subtropical climate of NSW, north outdoors. To do this strain inside, you might need height. So going to the point about it is stretching and vigorous. That is things that I had heard about in the past that I just wanted to reconfirm there and throw those little notes out there. That's just from Seed Finder and Shanti Baba, but I find him to be a fairly credible source who's been doing this for, I think, 60 plus years as well.
And what I liked about from the Orange Dream Haze itself, that plant, the mother plant, we'll say, of this cross, was the high was always like one of those like antidepressant highs. Just made you happy. If you're even in a bad mood, It would just like make it, from a fucking terrible 8 to a not so bad 5. And so it wasn't like a cure by any means, but it was still one of those nice, just chill you out. And then if you're in a good mood already and you smoke it, now you're in a better mood. Put some music on, and it's just great. It's not one of the ones that would be like narcotic and making you sleepy or get couch locked. It's like the opposite of all that. But I wouldn't say it's energetic either. It's just like a mood enhancer.
I I get that from some sour diesel. A lot of the sour that I've come across was more uplifting or sativa-esque, but some sours I came across were like pretty heavy on the gas, but like although I'd call it like stimulating more than uplifting, it would like make my like eyes perk up. I don't know if I have astigmatism or if it just like brings out astigmatism in me, but like some strains make me see like brighter light. Like everything looks literally physically brighter. Like the TV, the sun, the light on my ceiling or whatever it is, everything just seems a little bit brighter. And those tend to correspond for me with like really intense feelings of like positivity is like how I would describe it. Like even when you're in a shit ass mood, like Spartan was just describing, it's just like kind of like "Don't worry, be happy" starts playing in my fucking head, and it's just like I just don't give a shit. I look at the bowl, and I'm like, "Oh, this is good weed. I'm gonna smoke another hit or something, and I'll be fine. I'm not gonna worry about that little bullshit that didn't really even matter that much to me, or even if it did mean something, it's like it's behind me now, so I'm gonna move on and just let it be." And some stuff like that is it's a powerful tool. That's why I think like it's important that we continue to discuss and celebrate these different genetics that were pre-cookie and aren't just the cookie cutter of like modern gelatos and cakes and uh, things like that. As much as they are fire, it's important to hang on to like those old school. Now at this point, old school like Gorilla Glue, I think is a solid medicine, and stuff even pre-Gorilla Glue, like some of the chems, some of the you know. I'm personally a big fan of that haze, actual haze side of things, where you're going to take it 11-week minimum, like minimum. Like that'd be the fastest haze you've ever seen. Like I'm thinking 12 to 14, maybe even
Yeah,
16 weeks on some of them.
I'm cultivating my way in that direction. I've got all the seeds I need. I just need the will to cultivate a plant that long. But I have right now. I've already popped, and I've got little seedlings going of that one from DJ Short, which is the Newberry. So that one's supposed to be more hazy. Then after that, I think I'm gonna just jump in and pop some of those ones I got from Mr. Toad, those Haze for Days,
I will
and
say,
those are supposed to go forever. So we'll see.
if you
I
do
have that.
actually take them long, they tend to reward you with yield. Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
I have that pack of that too. That haste for days.
Yeah. Have you got it saved, or have you gotten into it?
No, I haven't gone into it.
Yeah, I keep looking at it because I like you. I went through my seeds not that long ago when I pulled out those Newberry, and I saw those sitting there, those Mr. Toad Haze for Days. I'm like, man, do I want to get into that? Yeah. I want to really bad, but then at the same time, it's like I got plant count. So if I have a plant that takes up long periods of time, it's where I could have maybe 2 plants.
It's a good point. It might have to yield a significant amount more to make up for those extra couple weeks. And those couple weeks, if it's 2 weeks and you do 4 crops a year, that's a full harvest. So on an 8-week strain. And that's something to consider, a full extra crop versus whatever, extra ounce or two you're getting, or more, depending on how big you get the plant. It really all just depends, because sometimes people with plant count do take advantage of those and maybe veg them a little bit bigger and just have like it take up a whole tent or something like that, and have like 5 plants that are all just monsters and like. Yeah, you only have one finish per month, but like that one's just fucking massive, and they don't need to be vegged that long because you flip them and they just stretch like hell and go crazy and will fill out trellis nets and scrogs and fight up through my Blue Dream, which is like a hazy hybrid. It was a super silver haze crossed to, or a Santa Cruz haze crossed to blueberry. And even with the blueberry in there, it still was just unbelievably like 4 or 5 times its veg height. And that's like through heavy, high stress training and bending low stress training and trellis netting it in the way that I was flattening it out, like not letting it just like, get up to it. Like I was fighting it. It broke through like 4 or 5 layers and just kept fucking going. So some stuff just wants to grow. And you really have to account for that by flipping much earlier, which at that time I did not do. You live and learn though. I think that's one of the beauties of growing. Somebody could tell you that all day, but until it happens to you, you won't
Right.
respect it.
And
Like,
those are the lessons you learn, when you struggle with something, or if it's even worse, if you lose a plant or something really terrible happens, those are the lessons you learn forever. So I know it's a terrible situation, but I've said this to a lot of growers when they reach out to me about things. I'm like, that we're our worst enemies. We beat ourselves up, and that's what I'll get. I'll get them, projecting, and I'll be like, look, guys, settle down, man. You just learned a valuable lesson that guess what? That mistake you're not making again. Guaranteed. You can check that one off. Boom. You've grown as a grower. Now you should be happy. You've learned something, and now move on, man. Get another one, and just start kicking ass. You know you're not going to make that mistake, right? So find the next mistake. You don't have to be super grower, master grower, whatever. If you learn from your mistakes, you're gonna do well eventually. I mean, it's guaranteed.
and even like if
You
you
know,
if your plant doesn't die, you can still get a harvest that, although like it might not be the prettiest or the biggest, it might still be good smoke. Like that blue dream that I grew that was like over vegged and got way too big, ended up being terpy as hell and it yielded crazy. Even though it looked ugly, it was still one of the better yields I've ever had. And sorry, Tao, go ahead.
and I was gonna say, I got my buddy. Well, at the time, he had his girlfriend was from Ghana, and he went to go visit Africa, and he came back with seeds, and he gave me the seeds, and dude, it was incredible. The plant in a week grew 6 feet inside without even like trying anything. It grew 6 feet. Hit the ceiling. I totally knuckled it low, like pretty low, laid it down pretty hard, and again in like 3 days, it was to the ceiling. It was
Wow.
unbelievable. The only mistake I made was not keeping that plant, and not I have still have seeds with it, of a cross with it in it, but I've tried repeatedly and I couldn't get them to grow because this is like a long ass time
That was a
ago.
land. That sounds like a land race. It makes
Oh,
sense,
dude, it
man,
was
because it's
definitely
like
a land race. It,
you
it
gave it good soil. It was used to fucking probably
right.
low
I gave
mineral
it.
content, and
It was
it's
used to
trying to
12
grow
hours of
fast.
light, and I probably
Yeah,
gave it
it's trying to
18 or
used to try to
20
grow
of
fast to
rain.
outcompete things, and you're just crushing it,
Dude,
giving it water all the time, not droughting it out.
this thing was, and like even like, yeah, I couldn't keep it. I did it as long as I could, and the I saved the stem. I might even still have it somewhere, but it was like a tree. It was literally already like wood. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, the thing would, if it was outside, I can't even imagine how big it would have gotten. I mean, yeah, it
Especially if
was
you could grow it
incredible.
next to a tree or something, and you could use
Right.
the tree to
It was
support it.
incredible, dude. But um,
Kyle Kyle Breeder did something like that with this Kerala, which is another landrace
right.
from India, and he said he like literally laid the pot on its side and had it like growing like down around the side of the tent, like basically
Hmm.
like spiraling up, and it was like I want to say maybe like close to like I don't know 15 or 20 feet by the time he was done with like growing it out.
Yep.
It's just such
I believe it
ridiculous
100%.
insane how big some of those plants can get. And I agree with what Spartan's saying when you give it a little bit of fertilizer when it's used to growing in
When it's used to
probably
sand or
native
whatever.
soils
Yeah.
that are sandy as hell and very little nutrient content. And they get big there and little nutrient content. Like I've seen
Hmm.
videos of those people over there. Like, and a lot of them are giving,
In the
depending on which
Congo,
country
I've
you go
seen
to, are
pictures.
giving some nutrients, but some of these places it's pretty much growing like raw in nature and just doing its thing and still getting huge and healthy.
So yeah, but I don't think there's many of those seeds around like anymore. That's why I was saying, like, yeah, I should have
You gotta
protected that.
look,
I should have
man.
saved some of them.
There's people, there's preservationists. Bodie has his Nyrika seed collective, where that was like a pretty much landrace preservation. And then there's like I'm pretty sure World of Seeds does a decent job. They might not be the best group, but there's also like if you're looking for on the Afghani side, there's a few different ones like Baba and Pack Land Race Exchange. There's a few different groups on Instagram that they just one of them recently did a drop of like a whole bunch of different regions where you get like a shirt and a little box set type thing. But if you look around, it's just most people don't really. I kind of look at that more as breeding stock for a lot of people. Most people aren't growing that to smoke it raw. It's difficult to handle those plants indoors. And if you're growing them
Right.
outdoors, they might not work with your natural climate. So unless you've got a really good light depth greenhouse that's huge and pretty well climate
That's
controlled, then you're gonna have a really hard time making some of that stuff work. And even then, like Brandon had some struggles with the landrace from the Ukraine, I think, the basically autoflower. And I think only the males ended up surviving, and the females, even like his lightest fertigated soil mix, was too hot for them, or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Yeah, the Siberian autoflowers. Yeah, they wanted to basically not have any nutrients. As soon as you try to fucking give them a nice, good environment, they were like, "Yeah, we're out of here. We're dead."
It's crazy, like almost like the ruderalis or ditchweed or whatever the that stuff was, like the feral hemps and things like that. If you give them any level of nutrient when they're so used to having pretty much nothing, then they just it's too much for them. I wonder how many generations it would take to like breed that into a modern cultivar to get it to a standard. I think you did some you hit some stuff with that male, the males you worked with, right? Did anything ever come of those crosses?
I did it. Let's see, Gorilla Glue, I think is what I crossed it to, and I was calling it at the time. I was growing those out, did a little bit of work with them. Russia with love because it was a Russian Siberian autoflower crossed with Gorilla Glue, which was from Vegas, and so it made me think of the James Bond theme because he's gambling, he's in Vegas, and there's like a Russian villain. I don't know. It was I don't know. Not much really came of it. It got crossed into some other stuff, but I still have all this that seed stock.
That's one of the coolest things about seeds to me. It's like a clone that you can put in the refrigerator, right? It's a clone that you can save to get back to later because I mean, I've popped really, really old seeds and they still pop. So
Depends on how well it's bred too, because some of the stuff it's like,
suppose, but I don't tend to hold on to shit that's garbage. I try not to.
yeah, that's a good point. I think it's having volume is really my counter action to that. So like F2ing something that I like, if I have like 5 or 10 of them, and then giving myself 100 or 1,000 to look through to find something similar to that, like one that was really special. I'm like, oh, I really liked that in that first 5 or 10 that I thought like, oh fuck, I kicked myself for not. Sour 76 is one I'm thinking of right now. It was a 1976 like Afghani that was crossed to sour. I ended up thinking it was something else for a long time, and then I ended up looking this up recently and finding out that it was a different cross. It was a HSO tester. Let me see if I could find the cross on it. I think it ended up being like a headband back cross essentially. But
Headband's just OG, I think.
yeah, and so it was like a gassy. But then there was some actual sour diesel. It was like a sour diesel crossed to a headband back cross,
That's
and
what
they
I've
were
been
calling it like
smoking right now is that Bliss Bud, which is sour diesel heavy, and I fucking love it.
really good stone. And these they had kind of like the rainbow of citrus. Like I had one that was lemon, I had one that was like tangerine, and I had one that was uh lime. So the structure was pretty solid. They were pretty fast finishing and really solid yield. So that was something that the high was just really strong and long lasting too, a little bit stronger than most of the stuff that I would come across. That like Tangy is one that I really like the flavor. A lot of people are indifferent about oranges or tangerine stuff, but I think Tangy actually has pretty good on the palate flavor, but it never got me like even like 8 out of 10 high. It was like 7, 7.5, like 7.75. Like never like I was never like, oh wow, I'm stoned off this Tangy. I'd be feeling good, but I was never like, wow, fucking stoned. That sour 76, even the tangerine fino, I took like 1 or 2 hits of a bowl and I was like, holy shit, I didn't finish that bowl and I'm this high. Like
Wow.
that's uncommon for me. And I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit, like to have that level of potency. And I thought maybe it was just because I was not strain tolerant to it, but I smoked like an ounce of it straight to the face and same thing the whole way through. It was just one of those things that had maybe that underlying Afghani. And I think the headband now, I used to think it was a sour diesel crossed to like a Calio, and that's where the orange and stuff was coming from. But I'll have to try and find it while we talk about some other stuff and figure out what the actual cross was. But it was super fire.
I really agree with you though with your point on popping that. If you have the ability to pop a little bit more to really hunt down the phenos, because I mean a great example for me in my own life is with the Spartan puke that I made, which was just Donnie Burger to Vortex. And I'd grown, I don't know, probably a 10 packish worth of them myself before we popped them over at the Trichome Forge. And over there, we ended up with like 28 phenos that we ended up flowering out. And I could tell like what I thought I had found in my little pheno hunt at home wasn't anything of what the full expression was that I saw once I got to see 28 of them. And I could walk into that room at the end. And by the end, I pointed out 3 of them. It was like, we just keep these 3, we can just cut everything else, because there was like, I'd seen so many different not phenos, but so many different females. By that time, I could see that those 3 stood out like a lot. But I wouldn't be able to do that. Well, I mean, if I was lucky enough to get one of those ones, I'm sure I would have seen it, because they're just, I mean, when you look at plants that are similar, but they stand out like 10 times better next to each other, I mean, it's like, okay, that's the one. So, the downside is the one that I like the best was like the stupid frostiest and everything, and looked awesome. Just didn't have much for smell as far as terps, but I still wanted to keep it because the male that I've got selected is super terpy. It smells like a straight onion. So I was like, you know what? Terps aren't really something that I'm really looking for in the female. So maybe I can, I don't know how that works. I don't know if that works that way as far as where the terpenes are, in the DNA mix up where that's decided. But I'm thinking maybe I can just rely on the male for the terps. Hit those 2 together for some F2s of the Spartan Pukes. But I have the 3 that we're going to be smoking and trying out. And my plan is to take a clone of I'm going to narrow that 3 down to 1 and then hit that to the male that I've already got saved. And those would be the F2s.
I think it's just hard to for some people to commit to making any amount of seed, even a small, like collecting one little branch of pollen and then like sprinkling that around. I think it's hard for them to get over the idea of like having seeds in their bud. And I think if you're gonna do it, you might as well just do like a run and fully commit to it and get like a few hundred or 1,000. If something that you're really interested, just be like, all right, I've got enough flour banked up. I've got my home grow dialed in and I've nailed it 3 or 4 times in a row. I've got a nice little selection and variety. Now I'm going to take a few that I really like and mix them together, even if it's just like one to the F2 or this one to that other one that you like, and see what you get from it. Because when you have 100 or 1,000, you don't worry about popping 15, 20, 30, 100, however many, and figuring out like, oh, this one's really fucking ripping in veg, or like this one already is frosty from a seedling, or like this one's showing, color even sometimes early on, like, and some people like that, some people don't like that, but there's a whole bunch of different things, and like keeping as many as you can for as long as you can. Because I think the final smoke is one of the most important things personally, as like somebody who comes from this typically from the medical side of things, but everybody selects for different reasons. So I think select for whatever you really enjoy. But when you have hundreds, it's a lot easier than when you have like a 5 pack or a 10 pack. So I think everybody here has made seeds in the group right now. Maybe I don't know. Noah the Grow, have you ever made seeds yet?
No, no, no.
Noah's the one we'll have to crack that nut someday. Get you
Well,
in one of your breeding
I've
tents or
made
something.
seeds on accident, like hermaphrodite. I had that happen to me once. I had a
Did you grow
cut.
any of them out?
I've given them out, and no, I didn't. I have some. I kept some. It was actually 2 pretty good crosses, but it was like Zookies and like Obama Kush. So the Obama Kush just hermed really bad, and a buddy of mine, he also had the clone. I told him right off the bat, I was like, dude, don't grow that. That's gonna herm. He's like, oh no, man, I'm good. And it hermed too. So the weed was really good. It just, it had seeds on it and shit. But I mean, he had quite a few big, fat, mature seeds. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh yeah.
but
I think sometimes the
yeah.
best weed is seeded. Maybe I'm just like blinded by my own, making them, but some of the most high I ever got was off seeded bud back in the day. And also I think when you take 2 really good plants and cross them together, sometimes the seeded bud that comes from it is fire. I'm curious if you grew out the crosses of that. If you have like, because GG4 was a product of that, right?
Sure.
So Zookie's Obama Kush, it could be like the next, diamond in the rough.
You never
Uh,
know.
that's how OG Kush was made. It was the Emerald Triangle herming onto a Hindu Kush. That's how Chem 91 presumably was made because the Dogbud was just a bag seed from, Chem 91 was a bag seed from Dogbud, some Grateful Dead show, and everything that he popped was female. So it's very likely that it was Herm, not. He said that he killed a male, but being like that he was 17 when he popped him in 91, that was potentially maybe a misidentification. Sometimes there's that undifferentiated growth that I like to talk about. It's covered in marijuana botany, and me and Gene Mendocinos made a good post about it. But it's I think likely cookies is another example of herm bud that ended up being pretty good stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of I think examples at this point, but there's also been some pretty fire stuff that's been selectively bred, whether it's Vortex, Jack the Ripper, Donnie Burger. Um, those are male to female crosses that were done with intentionality and specific kind of hopes and goals. And I think sometimes when you do that, a lot of people knock it out of the park when they put the years and dedication and passion. Even like Brandon's old style where he grow stuff too long in flower, like how he did with the Limarilla, and basically take some of the pollen from like a 10, 12, 13 week plant that was supposed to be harvested at week 10, and then brush that onto another plant that he likes. And Limarilla, I think, has been a killer plant for ever since in the inception. So it's a strategy that can work out.
I'll be releasing pure Limarilla soon. Maybe I don't know, 3 months, 4 months. And speaking of Kim, uh, P-Bud Mike actually hit me up and was like, I'm going to the farm on Friday. If you've never grown it, I'll send you a cut. She's real special. He said it's a little bit finicky, but yeah, so I'm stoked. I'm gonna have Kim D in my garden here soon.
That's really super cool. I remember growing. I mean, like I've said, like anything, I guess. Chem dog that was told I was told was chem dog. Who knows if it was? But for me, the best looking weed I ever grew, as far as like just frosty, that you knew when you looked at it that it was just so dank, and then the smell was so fucking like strong, fill a room kind of a stench. But for me, I could never. It was earlier in my career. I could never get it to yield worth a damn, and of course, it was super popular with the patients. So I was like, I just couldn't get it to work in my system for me. So I let that one go myself and been kicking myself a little bit for that because it was always really, I mean, probably some of the best looking weed that I've grown, I can say was Chem D. And I didn't grow it for more than maybe a year.
I'm excited to see, how it does.
It's the
I would
backbone, I think,
I
to a
would
lot
try to
of.
get that shit tissue cultured if I could. You know what I mean? That'd be what I'd be trying to get that thing like tissue cultured back to the and try to get the vigor back. Maybe that's just some of these old strains aren't always
Could be
kept in
carrying
the best
some
conditions.
hot plate and thyroid or other stuff. That's just slowing it down. I've heard putting it in the sunshine for a little while can also help get it back to more vigor than potentially it's having.
I've
Yeah,
noticed that.
what I like to do is I take all my mom's because I don't have a whole lot of veg space. I've got plenty of space for my flower room. Um, so I will take clones and then I'll flower out what my small mom, and then I'll keep doing that. But I'll take those, put them outside, get them super healthy, give them lots of beneficial microbes, and they just have maximum health in the bright ass sun, and then clone from really good healthy material.
That's definitely a good way to go about doing it. The strain I was talking about earlier, California Sour Diesel, is Sour Diesel BX3 crossed with headband. So all of that was crossed to old school Afghani that they called 1976 Afghani. So it was some really fire shit. But that sounds like a fire cross too. And
You want to
I'm
hear
excited that
something
you're getting.
strange? So headband is OG Kush and Sour Diesel, right? But also Sour OG is OG Kush and Sour Diesel. But Sour OG is definitely not headband.
Yeah, I mean the two parents can combine with the same exact crosses and make a different offspring, depending on who made it and when. And there's also different arguments to be made about what headband actually is. Some people say that it is what you just said, and some people have other thoughts about what headband might be. So there's some conjecture, and I think that the term headband makes it even more confusing because there's a lot of cannabis that people may have tried or experienced where they smoke it and they start to feel like this tight band start to almost feel like it's forming like you're wearing an actual headband. And I don't think that that's unique to the strain headband by any means. So a phenomenon like that can, or some people will also describe it as feeling like they're wearing a hat, like a tight cap on their head. And I think that with that being known, that wouldn't be crazy for me to think that multiple people named multiple strains headband based off of certain people experiencing that effect.
I think that's definitely plausible. People name strains and rename strains and everything else.
A lot of the guys I roll with, like the Sour OG that is in like the little circle that I'm in around here, is probably a different Sour OG than Brandon's working with. And then there's some other guy who's in the chat right now who's got a Sour OG. It's probably a completely different thing. And there's just so much diversity. And like everybody that I work with here, not a single one of them is on Instagram or any of the social medias. They're just doing their own thing like they've been doing for the past, however many decade plus, some multiple, like 1, 2, 3, 4 decades in. And it's just you never even know where sometimes this genetic material is coming from with these guys because like what they find credible or interesting and what they want to source is so different than a lot of what the current market and trends and things are doing. Like they don't ever go to shops. They don't look online about this shit. Like this is just they've had their little group that they serve for however many years and it just works. People figure out like, oh, I like this, I like that. Can I get more of that? But yeah, it's a kind of a fascinating. We're such a like segmented community in a way. Like there's so many little circles within this big giant circle of cannabis
That's
that
why I hope there's still some real land races that people think are extinct. But there's some like small family in the woods somewhere that grows the shit that no one really realized that they're still growing it.
I think it's out there for sure. I mean, anything and everything under the sun, and then the combinations of which, like, and Spartan mentioned, like, as many combinations as there are people, there's that many or more of cannabis. Because, like, I, as one person, can make multiple strains within my lifetime. I choose to, like, work one every couple of years. Like, and some people put out 20, 30 a year, and there's no right way of going about it. But it just shows, like, the diversity of a plant that you can breed thousands of seeds across many different, like, theoretically you could breed one male to like 100 plus females in a single breeding selection and do that 5 times a year and have 500 plus new strains for market every single year. And like there are people out there that aren't quite at that pace, but it seems like they're trying for it, if you know what I'm saying. And it just allows people access, which I actually think is a great thing in some regards, to any combination of things. There is some bottlenecking that goes along with it. Some stuff gets hype, and so it's like runts or Oreos or whatever. Permanent marker is the new hype train thing. But then like you just got your AK Green Brains who's just over there doing his own thing, and like me and Brandon and like Vegan Doja, like a lot of these or Doja DNA, like there are people that are interested in different things, and there are landrace people out there for sure. Kyle Breeder was that when he first started was really trying to go down that heavy landrace path, but I think he went more into the hybrids to make them tameable for people to grow because he realized you can't grow a 20-foot tall plant in a 5-foot tall grow tent. You've got to hybridize it some amount to make it feasible. And like even some of the hazes are cut down a lot from what they initially were. So Tao has let me know before the show that he just got to get going to the 1 hour mark. So Tao, I want to let you get your final thoughts and shout outs before you get running.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, it's always that's why starting seeds is always great, I think, because you never know what's gonna pop. You never know what you're gonna get, and it could be something really unique, which is always awesome. But yeah, I'm the American one. Most of you know me, and the American one underscore with underscore Keens over on the IG. And yeah, it's always good hanging out with you boys on the panel and everyone in chat. And hopefully, I'll be seeing you next week. Have a great week, everyone. Peace out.
Peace out,
Great having you,
Tom.
Tal. Cheers.
love.
Grow as well.
Later, man.
Before I shoot the link to the chat, because I did say Q&A, we did get a question that Spartan very courteously copied over to the Zoom for me, because I sometimes try and look back and forth and I end up not, there's like a lot of commentary going on. Sometimes there aren't questions, but I'm gonna mess up this person's name. But the question is, what sort of nutrient slash supplement additives are safe to keep in aerated reservoir? And what sorts of stuff should I water in on top and not via the reservoir? So I'll pass that to the Spartan first. You're muted.
I was just saying, sorry. This is one of those questions that I need to ask 100 questions to try to get my answer kind of thing, because it's so situational. But generally speaking, I can say that it's usually not a great idea to try to run anything hydroponic, anything organic, not any. This is very general terms, because there's plenty of examples that you can do this, but it's generally not a great idea to run organic, especially really heavy organic or thick organic things through feeding tubes without something. And even if you even if you usually the things that they recommend to run through to keep those emitters clean and everything is going to kill a lot of the organics that you're trying to. I mean, you're going to get the nutrition, but it's going to kill any of the biologicals probably with whatever they're. I mean, usually it's some kind of a cleaning agent. So it's like you're spending a lot of money buying products to make them less effective than if you would just hand water them in or find a different solution. And maybe that might just be bigger emitters or bigger tubing, or I don't know how exactly you're doing it. It just says an aerated reservoir, so I'm not sure if maybe you're just hand feeding with that and that still works. But what sort of nutrients and supplements additives are safe to keep in it? Yeah, that's a hard question, because see, the way that I like to grow organically is I like to top dress dry amendments, because dry amendments have high shelf lives, and then just water and water most of the time. And the only thing I'm adding to my water, I guess one of the things I can agree with is like some kind of a biological, like a microbe source. And there's a billion out there. So, I mean, I don't really want to recommend one over another. I'm right now using what is it even called? I can't remember. I've got it over here. I don't know. I got a flyer over here, but like Recharge is one that I've used a lot, that I like a lot. But any kind of biologicals, I think a good one to add once a week or once every 2 weeks. There's a lot of stuff that you can add, and it's good if you're feeding through a hose and you have all the right equipment. But I tend to, in my style, and I try to make things easy for myself as a gardener. I tend to just do all that dry amendments that I can, and then the only thing I'm really adding in the water is like a biological or one of Brandon's nutrients, his carbon-based nutrients, if I'm trying to address a nutrient deficiency, because if you are adding dry amendments, they're slow for the plant to be able to uptake all that. So a way around that is I use Brandon's hack, and that's to use his carbon-based nutrients to address any of my nutrient concerns. And then if it's even worse, I mean, even more of a dire situation, then I can do a foliar spray. But I still am avoiding, as you see all these examples, I'm avoiding putting it in a reservoir, letting it stay, stagnant, or even though it's being aerated, that aeration is you generally bringing warm air from your room into there and warming up that water. It's just a lot of things I'm not fans of.
A lot of factors to consider because it can easily go south if you're not on top of everything. If it gets a little too warm, if there's a little bit too much biological action going on in that res, you can start to get algae and other slimes and biofilms building up in your lines and your reservoir, and it can just become something that you're fighting, doing a whole bunch of cleaning more often than you'd want to, versus if maybe you just top watered it in, even with like a syngonic system where you're giving some hydroponic nutrients and just clean water through a line. Maybe you want to give your compost tea a little bit like once a week through a top watering. And that's something that I was doing when I was growing in cocoa is I'd mix it up with, just give it a little bit of extra. I think those microbes help uh, make everything more available and just give it better plant healthiness and maybe increase a little bit of the terp production, potentially having some more biological activity going on within the soil. So I feel like when I did it versus when I didn't do it, even with the same strains, I noticed a little bit more terp production and aromatic activity coming off the plant. So maybe it's just in my own head, but I do think that there's some benefit to the biologicals, even in a quote unquote hydroponic system.
Oh, I agree. I've been using that product I couldn't remember. I just went and looked. It's called Microbial Mass, and they're originally out of Canada, and they're starting to branch into the United States now, I believe. But Colin Bell from Mammoth Microbes is working with them now. So I thought that was really interesting. That's what turned me on to them and their product.
I'd heard about it from my Canadian grow homies. I see a lot of them. It's pretty popular up there, so it must be doing some pretty good stuff for them.
Yeah, they were awesome enough to send me a bottle, and I got one over at the Trichome Forge too. So I'm running it in organics, and then we'll see what it does for synthetics as well.
What's the what kind of biological is it?
1 second, I got the flyer right here.
Always interesting to know. Sometimes there's competitive options. Maybe Brandon Rossi even carries one, but not to sell out just for the Bokashi Earthworks only. But I think there's a lot of products. It's doing the. I think you have the
Oh, I got the
effect where it
background
it
on.
focuses on you, but it kind of blurs everything else.
All right. Let me see if it gives me an actual name of a organism. It's saying how that it's one thing I thought was very impressive here is how it says that it's actually it works and it's compatible with other ingredients like hydrogen peroxide, hypochlorous acid, citric acid, phosphoric acid, potassium oxide. All of these chemicals they're used in cleaning or keeping the lines clean in hydroponics on the salt side of things. And when we interviewed him on the Let's Be Bud show, and I asked them about that, how that happened, how that is, possible. And it's basically they're in the spore form, so they're pretty durable at that point. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, and it makes it a long shelf life on it too, I guess. Okay,
Pretty cool.
yeah,
Are you
it's
familiar at
not.
all with this product, Brandon? Uh, you're kind of a resident microbe person, so I figured I'd toss it over to you and see if you have any thoughts or experiences with that product, or if you haven't heard of it, or
Which
things like
one?
that.
Micro.
Microbial mass.
Oh, I've heard of it, but I have my own consortium that I use, that I manufacture here in Oklahoma. So that's what I use for that's what I use for my biweekly inoculations. And then any of the other type of microbes that I use spore concentrate. So I'll have like the Bacillus subtilis, Trichoderma, I have Bouveria bassiana, Metatarzarzanium. I've got specific spores that are like not pre-blended or anything. That's kind of what I'm using, for any of the
For
biological
sure.
crop stuff.
I think Okie Grower might be using some of the Bokashi Earthworks products, and his garden is looking absolutely fantastic right now. Some giant colas just throwing down, filling up this trellis very nicely. Lots of big juicy tops. How's it going, Okie Grower? Looking good over there.
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man.
Doing well. Good to have you. Brandon
Yeah,
West
I
starting.
just week 7 here. Beginning
Oh,
week
feeling good.
7. 2 blueberry squealers. Two
Thick,
different
healthy
phenos
cores.
of blueberry squealer. This is a rainbow sherbert.
Man, she's got tons of those pistols shooting out still.
How is that one smelling? Rainbow Sherbet.
Oh, let's see. Like Skittles right now, really. Real
Love that.
fruity.
Yeah, I like Rainbow Sherbet. It's definitely a terpy one. Pretty good high in my experience too. I like that one a lot.
And these blueberry squealer just smell like blueberry candy. Real fruity, real blueberry. But yeah, just using the humays from Bokashi Earthworks. 2 sip containers.
Nice. So you got 2 plants in one and one in the other.
Yeah.
Does that one on the left drink a lot more? Because there's the 2 plants? Or are they still drinking about
Yeah. Yeah, they dry up probably about a day or about a half a day earlier.
Makes sense. More root mass. Two plants are much more capable of taking it up, but it seems like the one on the right's holding its own. They all kind of shared the space pretty well.
Yeah, you filled that tent nice, man. Looks like you're gonna have a nice
Yeah,
harvest.
thank you.
Isn't this your
Yeah,
first
it
one in
should
the
be
new
good.
setup?
Yeah, it's the first grow in the new tent here.
Absolutely smashing it first run out. Turns out tents aren't too bad. I think a lot of people are averse to them for one reason or another, but if you get the right size and you set up your lights properly, you can
It's a good way
you
to
too
get
first run can grow some dank, big, juicy, healthy colas.
you get some of the best use out of your light with a tent, though. They put those reflective walls so close that it kind of bounces the light back into the plant a lot more than an open room would.
Yeah, and I got 400 watts and a little bit bigger than a 2x4, so they're definitely getting plenty of light.
Definitely. Well, you can tell just by the buds, man.
Yeah,
They're doing good.
yeah, it's like
I don't think you're going to be unhappy with this crop. I'll say that for sure. I think this is going to be a good first benchmark for you.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, just hop on and show the little tent real quick.
It's looking great. Brandon showed his off, but I only had his spotlighted for a second. So Brandon, if you want to pop back in there, you could walk us around a little bit and tell us what you were showing us.
Oh, I left. I left the garden. It's freezing in there. So I have I think it's like a 14,000 BTU room AC and heater, and it's like the AC. I mean the heater.
Did he cut out?
I think you did. I don't.
I was
Yeah,
like,
I
is
think
it
so.
me? I saw Spartan is still moving. I can hear Noah. I think Brandon might have lost his connection there for a bit. Brandon, you still with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying that it's really cold out, and my heater, that it's a heater AC unit, all in one. But it's not keeping it warm enough in there. So it's only like 60 degrees in my flower room right now, which is a little too low. It's gonna
Oh,
suffer for the next couple days, but there's nothing I can do. But I didn't want to keep hanging out in there cold.
Dude, get in there and start doing some push-ups, bro. Fucking heat it up with your manpower. Start sweating. Get it a
your
little.
little space heater, little small space heater throw in there.
Yeah, I threw a little space heater in there because it was running at like 45, and I put a little space heater in there, and now with the lights on and the space heater, it'll get up to about 60. Uh,
Nice.
So it's
So they'll just
okay.
slow down a little bit.
Yeah, it sucks because they're like in optimal, growth state. They're at, day 31 today. So, sucks. But what can you do?
Nothing about that level of cold. I mean, unless you move the grow inside of your actual living quarters and heat it up to like your livable. I think Okie Grow, is that how you're handling it? Is your grow inside of like the same area that you live in?
No, it's in my bedroom, so I don't really have any problem with heating.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds like Brandon might be doing it in separate, like a garage or a shed or somewhere outside of where he lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I put insulation in drywall and everything, but it does have a very cold cement slab. I could probably insulate the roof a little bit better. That might help.
Is the heat pump just chilling outside, or do you got some kind of a box around it?
No, no, no. So it's not that type of AC unit. It's one of those portable ones with the tube, So I have a
Oh,
short tube on it, and it just blasts all of the exhaust
oh, okay.
through a little flange that opens and closes when it's on. And but it's just not powerful enough, I guess. It's just too cold right now, and so yeah, I put a little space heater in there, and my plants aren't gonna die, but you know, it's gonna affect it, you know.
You get some purple weed, man.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
60 is definitely suboptimal for ideal plant growth, but they will definitely get super purple and they'll survive. I saw Miss Nudie had plants grown in Canada, literally like survived multiple snows, and it took like a couple freezes, like hard, like rained and then froze them to like kill some of these plants. And like these are like Mexican bag seed that like they had some friends bring back home for them. So it's like not even the most acclimated plant by any means, but it's hardy and resilient up to a point. But I definitely think it'll unfortunately hurt yield, but you'll get some really pretty, usually frosty purple buds in that type of weather or temperature.
I'd be worried about like your humidity staying pretty low too because of the cold temperatures. I'd be worried about that too. Well,
Yeah, it
actually,
usually gets dry
I'd rather have
when
the
it gets cold.
dry. I'd rather dry than a bunch of humid and cold, I guess. You don't
yeah.
want that.
It's real dry. So one of the things is to, I don't have to do much. I watered yesterday. I don't have to water my beds every day. So I just went in there, checked to see, what the temperatures were. And then I did have to add more water to the 5 gallon. I have a 5 gallon jug. If you guys have seen my profile page, you can see I use this little room humidifier. It works pretty good, it's not, I could probably add another one and it would be even more efficient, but it works well for the purpose unless we're having extremes in weather. So it's just running constantly right now because it's dry. So it's staying, about
Yeah,
45.
I think it's harder for the air to hold humidity when it's colder. Like I think
Yeah.
physically, like it's harder, um, just like a physics thing. And so typically like to a point where it's like most of these devices for like wine fridges, humidors, Curador type whatever products, if it keeps a temperature at like 60 degrees, it is almost always around 60% humidity, just being like a sealed up space at that temperature. And as you drop it down all the way down to like fridge temps, like your fridge is usually 30, like whatever degrees and 30% humidity. Like if you put your hygrometer in there, they're almost always going to be right about the same. And there's different little shelves and things that you can close up to get more or less humidity, depending on how far away it is from the actual unit that basically cools the fridge. I even saw one in a hotel recently where the fridge basically had no cooling at all. It was just and I think a lot of them are built this way. It's just the freezer, but then this one literally just had like a few vents that like the coolness from the freezer dropped down into the fridge. So that was the only way to cool the fridge off. I was like, that's kind of a interesting design choice to go about, but I think a lot of them are manufactured that way at this point. So always interesting trying to figure out what the best avenue is to keep the temperature, humidity as close to ideal as possible, and knowing that unfortunately sometimes when it's 1 or negative degrees, your plants will be happy just to be at 60, not at that outside temperature. So it could be a lot worse for sure. What's the coldest harvest that your plants have made it through over there in Michigan, Spartan?
I don't know. I never let it get to the snow. I never got to that point. I didn't want to deal with. I don't like the cold myself. I mean, this blizzard that we just had or whatever storm that went through here this weekend, I just stayed inside. Fuck it. I'm not leaving. I'm just gonna stay in the house and I'm chilling until this thing blows down, goes down the street, and I'll deal with it when I have to leave the house. But until then, maybe it'll get warmed up and it'll melt. I don't know. We'll see. That's my opinion with that kind of stuff. But my plants, I get them down before, I get them down in the fall. I don't, maybe, let me see. Never to December. I've never taken a plant to December. And I've definitely had them into November. So I would say November, but early November, first week of November.
Yeah, I think a lot of people try and get them down in the October range, but sometimes the plants just don't cooperate. And if you can, then you can, push it as long as you need to, I guess, unless there's like imminent rain or a freeze coming. That, I mean, even like to some extent, I saw somebody who had snow coming. I was like, dude, just make fresh frozen. Like you're gonna be fine. Like chop it down, throw it in some bags, and shake off most of the snow if you
Exactly.
can. But we do have Smot Poker and Crispy Wannabe joining us here, so I wanted to say cheers, Smot. Welcome in.
Cheers,
Cheers,
guys.
Don. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, man. You sound good.
Sounding good?
Garden looks
That's
good.
cool. Yeah, we had these plants, and I seen someone in the chat talking about this ghost train haze. And I figured, what the hell? I'd come on, say hi, and show the plants. We got one of those ghost train haze, and we really liked it before we grew it again. It's the one in the back over here. They're really tall. These got flipped on Festivus, the 23rd, December.
Nice.
Nice.
They're going to be like 18 inches long,
Are those photo period?
Yeah. They had purple stems real bad too. And we were talking about Brandon Russ. Let me see if I can show them to you. Hey, can you see that?
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep. You got like stripes going through the main stalk.
Yep.
And all the leaves have red stem.
Yep. Everywhere that it's facing the LED. We were kind of bullshitting about this. And was it anthocyanins? Was it a deficiency? I know
a little bit. That might help, and then also try to increase your calcium levels.
What was the first part, Brandon? It kind of cut out for me.
He's at your PPFD is at 1200. That's way too high.
That's only 60%, but my average shouldn't be that high based on my meter. It's a little high on that one, but
yeah, I mean, I have a 640-watt light that I run over a 3x3 bed, and I only run it at. I mean, I started off at about 30%, and I usually don't ramp past about 60% on it. I think a lot of people are overrunning their lights. But also, I think you might need to just push your calcium a little bit more. That could probably pick that up.
We're going to get the meter out here and see what she says. I got some other plants here I'll show you too. They're
Brandon, are you saying to use more CalMag? Is that what you're telling them?
Here's the thing. So calcium and magnesium are both essential, and you need them. Calcium is more than even nitrogen.
Yeah.
So you should be running calcium pretty high all the way through, and if you're running calcium high, you might antagonize magnesium, so you might need to be adding it, and that's why I recommend doing the spray application. Yeah, turn them down a little bit, see what happens.
That's a good tip. Yeah, you could do a full year of some CalMag.
Yep. I got one ready. Here's my CalMag for you. These ones here had the CalMag ripple. See it right there on this little bit, and that. There was this one other one here had a little bit of CalMag.
I think that's usually due to like too high of nitrogen is usually when you get the crippling leaves, or it's usually a pH. pH is a little off.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, the lights is one of the big thing that I've noticed is a lot of people I think are just running them too high.
These are our New
These-
Year's grow plants. These are in cocoa. We dropped these on when the ball dropped on New Year's there with Doc MJ and them guys at the on our show for the New Year at the Cocoa for Cannabis New Year's Grow Challenge. So there's 2 weeks today. I started them in these cups. I soaked them for about 15 hours and then tossed them in there. We got some baked apple, banana kush, and then 2 strains we won at the Grow Room 420 show: Octane Fire OG and White Fire Gelato, and then we have 2 more or another baked apple and banana kush. Those are from the Homegrown Seed Company. We've grown some other of their stuff. It's pretty good. We get almost 100% germination. So I'm not like always like when that happens for me. You know, I like to tell other people.
You popped all 6 of those at the same time?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
crazy. That is crazy. That how wild that. Look how different, how big different that is. That's great. Look at that.
Yeah. We dropped all these live on our show on midnight when the ball dropped, and they are bigger.
This
and
is
these
why I
two,
popped like. Go ahead. Sorry.
to say these 2 and these 2 are the exact same strains from the
And
same seed pack.
This is why I pop like 15 of whatever strain I'm trying to hunt through, because like you'll find like 2, 3, or 4 of them are really like the diamonds, you know, like they're just shining above everything else. And a couple of them are like average, and then there's a runt in every litter. It seems like, you know, there's just like sometimes they have that one that just doesn't want to grow as fast or as pretty as the rest of them, or it's a little finicky on the nutrients or the lighting or whatever it is. So it's I always love to have more, if and when possible, to look through. And a lot of places, if you look at your local laws, if you choose to follow those, then you can get away with plants underneath a certain height or before they show sex. And like in Michigan, if they don't have roots on a cutting and things like that. So there's ways to play around with it a little bit. Looks like we're getting some PPFD meter readings here from Smot, looking like between the 500 to 800 range. I've been seeing looks like 745, 746, 830 there, 875.
Let me turn my phone here. Thanks to my wife for coming in and telling me, turn your phone, turn your phone. I'm going to try
I
to
normally
get
remind people, but it actually looks fine.
I'm going to
Looks
try to get you guys to be able to see the readings as I go to them. This
Oh,
girl
yeah, there
here
you go.
probably going to be reading a little higher on this girl.
Almost 1,000 at the peak, I think, was the highest I saw.
I try not to push them.
800s, 900s.
I don't particularly believe that, Brandon, that it's, I'm not sure where they get that. I'm not no math guy, but I know how to read this meter here. This is kind of what I've been going by, but I
They
appreciate
recommend the hanging height, I think, is lower than you would. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. Yep. Doc was here. He'd be able to explain it to me a little better, you know, but I'm not sure what's going on there. This is kind of what I use, man. See if I can't get that.
No, I think you're doing it the right way. You're probably getting a more even spread, and instead of like, you know, jamming it at like the maximum efficiency or the closest distance possible, like you're not doing like a racked grow. So in this
Right.
case, you're getting good even spread. You're not over pushing them, and I think that they're looking good.
This little thing was hiding in there, man. I can't never kill them, Jack. You said you grow like 15 plants so you can go through them. Well, if we pop a couple extra ones to hedge our bets so that we know that they're all the same age and they'll be at the same stage of growth and shit, you know. We always say, well, we'll just get rid of the ones we don't want. And guess what? They get jammed in the corner and we just kind of want to see what they do. But it's fun, you know.
I just fed one to a cat, so you could feed them to the cat, and the other ones I've gifted to neighbors. But I think where you're at, that's a little bit more frowned upon, unfortunately, to this current point. But maybe someday you'll be able to get that local community going.
There's a couple of our friends' stickers. I want to shout them out. ATG, Towel, Sour Diesel Tangy. But
You
yeah,
got a crispy one on there. Cheers.
Crispy and cocoa for cannabis. And see, that's our
And
first
voted.
light. That Fluence light, first one we ever bought, paid like $1 a micromole for that damn thing. It was a great light, but and then we got our Canatrol stickers. You guys all probably have a sticker door too. The Medic Grow.
Mine was a garbage can, and now it's taken over a little TV stand.
I have a sticker door. I'm just getting ready to start a second sticker door. I've already have a sticker cabinet.
My wife asked me, "What are we going to do when we move? If we ever move, are we going to take the door with us?" And that sounds like a good idea.
I think
Yeah,
I
they're,
am.
they're
I
cheap
think
enough
I'm
to
gonna take it.
replace. I mean, yeah, take it off the hinges. It's quick. 2 bolts, bam, bam. Slap the new one in. They'll
Even if I just
probably
take that
give you
old
more
door
deposit
and
back.
even if I just take the old door and lean it up against the wall, I'm keeping that fucking door.
That's the way to go. That's why a door is a good one. We did the garbage can because I was like, you're gonna need a garbage can at the next place. So figure, at least for like the living room option, the one that has to sit out. Some people are fancy and put them in a little cabinet or whatever, get them out of sight, out of mind. But yeah, I don't know. It's nice to have stickers to show off some of the history. I'm like the world's worst person at selling seeds. I don't even have like a logo for a package. I just keep it as minimal as possible. It's just literally a seed vial, and you get the information on the website. I'm not fucking no stickers, no. I know people love that shit, so I should probably get up on it. But it's one of those things that I have not gotten to quite yet. My packaging is minimalist to say the very very least.
Hey man, this plant right here has some massive calyxes on it. I don't know if I'll be able to get it in there. I thought that was pretty wild. They're like some of them just seem abnormally large. Why can't I get that in there? What the hell am I doing wrong? There's one right there. They just seem I don't know, for the plant size and everything. They were huge. At first I thought it was some kind of a pollen sac. I hurry up and started moving everything and looking, but I always look at different things like that to watch how they develop. But that one seems to have bigger than normal, especially, I don't know, it just seems different.
They did look pretty big. I agree.
I mean, this plant got pink stems or purple stems too, man. So I definitely got to change something. Or try to
spin that around. Is the underneath? What color is underneath that? Underneath that petiole. Is it just as dark underneath it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, the whole way down. Now over here on some of these other ones, I'm not good with the camera, man, but some of these other ones are only
that one's green.
What's your EC in and EC out?
It's funny you ask. We're at about a 1.5, 1.6 maybe at most.
Okay. I mean, I think maybe you could.
We could probably come down a little bit.
I think you could even go up a little bit or just adjust the NER. Like if you're a little bit lower in calcium, you could drop nitrogen down a little bit and add calcium up a little bit.
What was the light levels like? I'm sorry, I had to go to the bathroom. That's why I disappeared for a minute there. But what were the light levels on the inside of the canopy? That's generally where it's the highest. And it looks like that your petioles were like all the way red, all the way around on the ones in the inside, but on the outside, that tends to be just, the underneath are more green, where the light intensity is usually lower.
The highest reading in the middle was like 815, and the outside, the highest reading was like 715. Yeah, I'm not pushing them.
That's not bad at all. That should be all right.
I actually feel the EC's a little high myself. I think I was going to maybe try to back it off, but all in all, I'm not upset. They're pretty sticky. They smell good, and every tent's a new thing. You watch them, kind of learn. We don't grow from clones here in Pittsburgh. There's nowhere to buy clones.
Yeah, we're just being fussy. It looks beautiful. We're just being fussy. You know us. We're just trying to make everything perfect every time.
I'm the same way. I often overlook the good just to focus on the one thing that I think that I need to improve on, and then sometimes you got to check yourself, right?
I mean, it's a pursuit of perfection. And in doing that, it's like if you're shooting at a target, they say aim small, miss small. So with growing with like a plant, you're trying to basically aim for like the 10 out of 10 so that you can hit the 9.5 out of 10. You're not going to get a 10 out of 10 because it's damn near impossible to have like a perfect run. You just try to get it. And then every single run, you could be like, oh, I could have watered it a little bit sooner on that one, or maybe I could have dialed my nutrients down or up a little bit more. And you just keep on tweaking, dialing it and get like 1% better, 1% better. And even when you fail, even if a plant dies, like I just had to cut a plant because I fucked up before I went on vacation, there is stuff to be learned. I think of it as like not something to beat ourselves up over, but something to learn from, and we can take that and try and make ourselves better in that next run. Maybe what we thought was a 10 out of 10 when we first started growing is really like a 8 or a 9 out of 10. And you might knock it out of the park one run so hard, you're like, holy shit, my 10 out of 10 has actually increased in scope because I grew something that was so good. I had never experienced anything that good before, which like some people out there will have happen to them because maybe you didn't have access to great cannabis before you started growing your own, which a lot of people, they might think that they had good cannabis. They might have spent top dollar to get the best cannabis that they could. But when you grow it yourself and like you pick a really good breeder and you take years maybe, or even just like you could just crush it on your first run. Like sometimes people literally knock it out of the park on the first run. They're like, this is the best shit that I've ever had. So it's totally worth the effort.
Agreed.
What's
Well, hey,
we could go around.
I
What's
was gonna
one that
say,
really rung your bell, Smart and Crispy, that like you grew that kind of stood out to you and the past few years of growing a strain that kind of made you think, wow, this is like something special or unique that I hadn't smoked anything like that before.
we were just talking, there's a couple, man. We grew tile shit. I'm smoking. We got Stacy right now in a jar, and she smells. It's wild. And she changed a little bit, but she has a blueberry kick to her. When we chop her up, though, she turns to more of like a Fruit Loopy smell or something. Love that. I've loved all tile strains. The Stacy, the Violet Beauregard, and the Amy Aces. Those are all killer, man. And I'm not just saying that because I like Town. He's my friend, our friend. It's legit. I actually was worried when I was growing his shit. I was thinking if this turns out bad, I'm gonna have to say like it sucks and it might have been my fault or whatever. But all three of them's been gold, and I'm so relieved and it's wonderful. But that one back there is one that we're regrowing. That's the Ghost Train Haze, really very much like that. And then we had that apple fritter. That was one of my favorites. The apple fritter was real terpy, man, hard ass buds, and just I loved it. My wife's
House got some fire
downstairs.
stuff.
Yeah.
Apple fritter is a popular one too, for sure. And glad that Tao stuff worked out well for you. It seems a lot of people, myself included, have grown and enjoyed his stuff.
As Ophelia, Emily grew some of that out. That was really nice too.
Oh yeah. She was mentioning that in the chat one day that she really enjoyed that.
I'll say this. If you get seeds from someone like Tao or like, I don't know, myself or anybody else who's on this panel, who tends to seem like they're a little bit picky about who they select with their breeders, and then they like take a little bit of time and only put out a handful of strains, you can pretty much guarantee yourself or, have a good likelihood of finding something really enjoyable in those packs. Because I used to think like, oh, there's these people that, you spend two, three, four times as much for these packs of seeds, and they have really good hype and marketing and cool packaging and cool names. And a lot of people swear by this one is the best washer and this is the best breeder
Yeah.
of whatever. And then like I would grow it and I'm like, yeah, it's good. 6, 7, 8, maybe a 9 out of 10. But then like I got some stuff from like the homie and it was just like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I was like, holy shit. Like he's just like this random guy that I met who put a lot of work in and like nobody really talks about his stuff, but it's way better than the shit that I was getting from this dispensary, is way better than the shit that I was paying way like big money for some of these seeds. And it's just amazing. I do want to give Brandon Russ a big shout out. Shout out to Bokashi Earthworks. Uh, Brandon Russ had to get going, and he had some family stuff going on. I didn't see the message before he ran out. So cheers to Brandon. Thank you so much for everything you do for us in this community.
Yeah, and shout out as well as what we're the same topic we're on right now. If you're looking for quality seeds, there you go. Brandon Rust on Bokashi Earthworks. You can find some of his work there, and that's awesome. Just like what Jack's saying. He's another one of those breeders. He doesn't charge you an arm and a leg, and he's got excellent gear that other people with that same gear would be charging twice, 3 times, 4 times as much. So shout out to Brandon, man.
Yeah, definitely don't make the mistake of like, sometimes the luxury pricing makes people think that it's you pay more, so it's gonna be better. In the seed game, I think that sometimes it can even be the opposite. Unfortunately, you pay more, you might not get as good of a product as you might get from somebody who's humble and realizes that like when you're doing direct to consumer, even at the prices that he's doing, he can, make some money and afford to, share some good genetics with the people and put some really fire stuff out. I've seen a lot of people grow his stuff and be really happy with it. So I think I'm not sure if Okie Grower, were you growing some of his stuff? I think Blueberry Squealer might be like a cross of something that he might have worked on, but I think it might be for somebody else.
I know.
Yeah, the blueberry squealer is blueberry train Mac crossed to a blueberry muffin from Humboldt and Seco.
That sounds like a cool cross. I love it when people do that. They take like two different blueberries, cross them together, and then you really hope that you get exactly what you got, which you're saying you got the blueberry candy. That's what people hyped about the Humboldt Seed Company, but then some people say they grew it and they got some floral stuff or whatever stuff that's not blueberry candy that they're looking for. So I'm stoked that that cross it worked out for you because it's not always that way. Sometimes you get something called blueberry squealer and it smells like gasoline or something like that. So. And sometimes it smells like gas when you harvest it, and then 6 months later, it smells like blueberry. In the case of my Doc Holidays, which that was a eye opener for me.
His Limelight is gassy and limey, and I love it.
We got a strain. It's a cross of Brandon's. I think someone else made it. It's it's three different things. It's Black Butter Reserve crossed with Black Lime Reserved crossed with Peanut Butter Belts. But I gotta say, it's pretty damn good. I don't know what's coming out in it because I have nothing to compare it to. But I think some of that came from Brandon. And you know what else? Brandon sells out his shit, like his Limarilla and stuff. It sells out in like an hour. That should say a lot.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good one too, the Limarilla. That's a good one. That's his OG one.
I've got some of his like kind of like lime cross to lime stuff that I definitely need to pop some of his stuff because I'm always whenever like I was just talking about when you get seeds from the homies like so often they're like the 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 type stuff or at least capability for that because you see the byproducts that he's growing himself and some of the other people that are growing his gear are finding. And so it's definitely worth checking out some of those genetics if you got them. And there's some Gorilla Glue stuff, which I haven't had in my garden in way too long. So I need to get some of those glue crosses popped. Cheers to Dog Doctor who just joined us.
What's up, Dog?
Hi guys,
Good to see you, man.
how's it? Everybody doing?
Good,
It's
good. You
been a
actually joined
while.
right as Spartan's gonna have to get going to take care of his dogs and head on over to the Michigan Bros Grow Show. So before you do your intro, I'm gonna pass it to Spartan first to let him say his final thoughts and shout out to maybe his greetings to you as well.
Yeah, good to see you, Dog Doctor. Always good to see you. I usually see you a couple times a week, at least in my DMs. So it's cool
It's
always cool
true.
to see you get on the screen. You need to be on the screen more, man. Get up here more.
Thank you. Sorry just now, my friend. Sorry just now.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Shout out to everybody that came out for the show. I love these shows where we just take questions from the chat and answer people's questions. So shout out to the chat. That's why we do this thing. And shout out to everybody listening to this later. We don't shout you guys out enough, but you probably consume more of our content. When Jack and I were talking about that earlier, consume more of our content than even the people watching on YouTube. So much love to everybody listening to us at work or whatever you're doing, maybe in your gardens. So let's just keep this party going, keep popping the seeds and keep growing. Much love, everybody.
Keep growing, Spartan.
Yours
Cheers to
love, my
that.
friends.
Always, that's the goal. That's the mission. Overgrow the world, keep it growing, keep that grower love alive, share genetics, share seeds, cuts, and the passion, the education, the knowledge, and just sort of the whole community aspect of this is just keeping it alive and coming here each week, sharing with the people, connecting with more and more people, and getting to see some awesome gardens. A lot of the byproducts of people that have learned from not only this show but other shows, and the whole volume of experience and knowledge in the community, online and offline. I've learned a lot of stuff from people, like I mentioned earlier, that are offline. I want to give the spotlight here to Dog Doctor, though, to show off. Looks like you've got some cool
Oh,
stuff being popped right now.
this
Some
is
super freak.
my. That's the clones, yeah. This is not going anywhere. This is my keeper, and she's not going anywhere. The rest is just a pheno hunt I'm doing from seed from a bunch of different genetics. This is all from one seed bank, and this from another. This is from Heart Genetics, and this is from Anesia. I'm pretty curious to see what's coming out so far. All of them pretty healthy. This one I broke the roots when she was this size, and I thought I killed her, but she's by far the biggest of the three of the same. All the
Wild
rest
how they bounce
going,
back.
yeah, dude.
They're actually all looking fairly uniform, like across this whole little tray here. I mean,
Yep,
fairly similar heights and similar leaf size, and other than the super freaks, obviously. But yeah,
they
different
they
genetic.
they are all same age. They are about 2 weeks now, something like this.
New year pop.
Yep, yes, sir.
Good time to
This
get
is the
started
New
again.
Year's pop, and this is the autoflowers that they say they are small plants. Okay, so can somebody explain me this, please? I know I have strips, not bad.
Wow, that's a beast.
And she keeps going.
You can get flower in your veg tent. Grow it out of flower.
This is a veg tent, yeah. And she keeps growing. I bend her. She was the one over here. When she was this tall, I put her there. I bend her. I put like this just to see where she goes. But she keeps growing. I think that now she stopped the bulking, and is not getting any taller than this.
Yeah, just keep her
But
fed. She's gonna want to be eaten when there's that many bud sites, and that's a
oh, she's
massive
eating
plant.
every day. Yeah, she has food in there, but I don't think that what I feed the soil will last for as long as it does with the rest of them normally. She's
Yeah,
way
I'd throw
bigger.
like maybe some little, tiny little extra, and maybe some worm castings on there, and just let it
Yeah,
ride.
I'm gonna have to feed her more strong for sure.
Yeah,
This
because
is
that thing is
almost done.
that's a huge ass
Sorry.
plant with a ton of bud sites. If all of those are gonna get filled out, it's gonna eat everything in that
And
pot.
and they are becoming beautiful. It's not just
Oh, it's
like they make.
stacked.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
stacked
just
hard.
like. I mean,
And growing is
and
fun, man.
oh yeah, I can you imagine this outdoor in native soil? This thing
Be
would
wild, man.
be enormous. I don't know.
It's weird though. Outdoor,
This
all it takes is like a few bad days for an auto to really throw it off of its pace. This is looking
that's true.
frosty. Nice little purple. How's it
This is
smelling?
almost done. This let me check because there are two different smells in here now. Yes, this is the fruity one. I can't distinguish the fruits for now. It's the epsilon, but she's very, very, very fruity and very sticky. And this one, this is herbal but freshy, not mint, but fresh like mint fresh, but not mint. I can
Like a menthol maybe, or
not
something else.
no. It's when I mean fresh, it's that thing that will open your lungs like mint does and eucalyptus does. It looks like that, but it's not that smell. I can't really explain it.
No, I know what you're saying. It might be like sabanine or one of those other terpenes, like not eucalyptol, but there's a few different ones. Not terpinolene. I can't put my finger on exactly which one I'm thinking of.
I know she
Um,
looks ugly,
it's hard to
but just
pronounce. Bisabolol, I think, is another one that's like one of those weird.
wait. If we're going to not clean it all, not the which one you mean?
Bum.
The BS, but no,
Yeah,
this one? It's
yeah,
this
yeah,
one,
yeah.
yeah? Yeah, it's possible. The one in chamomile,
Sweet
it's possible.
floral aroma.
Yes, it's possible. Yes, sir. It's possible.
That to me smells clean. It gives me like this like almost like you're like smelling soap, but there's not soap present. It's like
Yeah,
got a fresh, weird sense of clean to it. I think a tiny bit of limonene can help with that too.
it's possible. It's possible. Very curious to see how she will do when
Oh,
dry.
that super freak is so beautiful. I'll
That's
never
the
get tired of looking at
freaks.
that.
Me neither.
This is the beauty, like we were talking about, growing different genetics. Like this is actually you can just visually tell it's different. Like
Oh,
I I think
I have
that's cool enough just on its own regard. But the high
three,
seems to be pretty good too.
no, I managed to keep her more or less the same height this time, but I vegged these two clones for almost 3 months together to this point. Which, if you have a perpetual going and a veg tent, is okay. But if you are a person that don't have that or time or something like that, it takes longer to achieve the same result as you would in a normal pheno. But her uniqueness and the flavors, for me, it doesn't mind the time. Back here we have Tropical Tangy from Dutch Passion and the new run for the Jealousy, which had a few tops jumping all over, but they look okay and happy, so I'm not pulling the light up as they seem pretty happy in general speaking. So
Let it ride.
yeah, I mean the taller ones, they're still praying and they're not curving the leaves in, or at least not too much. So
They adjust for the most part, and I think that, like you're
yeah,
saying, and they're not too close and not getting too beat up. If they're not bleaching, I think that you're really not abusing them too badly.
yeah. And if I bring this up, I will lower PPFD on all the rest, and I have good numbers down there. Up here, they are a bit too high, but again,
It
as
can
long
handle
as they're
high.
not bleaching, yeah.
You just get diminishing
there's
returns, to be honest. As long as
and
the
they are.
CO2 is there, which it seems like you do have decent CO2, and
This I do in
so
the house, but and these ones, the Jealousy, they are not on the same feed as the rest, as I have them in two small pots, so I can push them as they will probably want more food being closer to the lights and healthy, so I will be able to push this out somehow. You want to see where the she comes from? It's doing the 24-hour sleep, but maybe I can show you like this. Yes, I can.
don't herm out your garden for us.
Oh no, no, she's sleeping to go so that I can catch her. I know that she could stay for at least a week or a week more, but she's on a competition and I have to harvest it. So I
Okay.
will test the true genetics expression of her on the next rounds. I'm pretty happy with how she is, and of course, yeah, there's not enough lights.
Sometimes it turns out just fine when you take it like a week earlier than you normally would. And sometimes even the flavor I find is a little bit better on the early end. The stayingness of the high maybe might not be as strong, but
I
I think
really hope she keep the profile. She's so strong, strawberry gum smelling. That's all I identify here. It's strawberry gum. Really is, and I
that's
don't mind at all.
I love strawberry strains. I've had a really good raspberry recently, a raspberry gelinade. It smelled just like raspberry candy. Fantastic aroma. I love raspberry strains personally, but we're coming up to that last 5 minutes in the show, so
Oh,
I'm going to go ahead and drop the spotlight and pass it to our first guest of the evening, Smot Poker and Crispy.
Cheers, everybody. Crispy's here with me now, and we wanted to say thanks for letting it was nice to talk to everybody and grower love. I wanted to mention, Jack, the chat at your show, man, at you guys' show is second to none. Like, you got so many people in the chat that are like breeding and that have been doing this for so long. I learned so much just sitting here reading the chat. So I wanted to make sure to say grower love to them.
Yeah, grower love to everyone here. It's an honor to be amongst the greatness here.
I honestly will echo that. The chat really makes the show, and it's almost like a show within itself. And if you go back and watch, thankfully on YouTube, it records all the live chat and it saves it and then uploads it. So if you don't come to the live show, you can still watch. If you go on the bottom in the comments, slide over on your phone, it'll say like watch live chat. And so that's just amazing. And it's really connected us with an amazing audience. And we've got people from all different backgrounds and lots of different experience. So we're thankful for everybody. So thank you, Smot and Crispy, so much for joining us this evening. It was great to have you. And our next guest of the evening was the dog doctor. You're still muted, dog doctor. I don't know if you realized.
I did not realize that. Sorry. Thank you. I was saying I'm disappearing and appearing. I don't know why this is doing this today, but I'm here. Sorry so late coming, and thank you for having me anyway, Bart. I'm Dog Doctor. You can find me in Grow Diaries as Dog Doctor Official on Instagram. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Jack. Thank you all for jumping in and for doing this. Growers love and have a blessed day. I don't know why I'm jumping in and jumping out. It's not me today. I'm sorry.
It's all
I'm
right.
not
Sometimes
ready.
Zoom gets funny with these backgrounds
Oh,
and
I'm
everything like
back. I'm
that.
back.
There he is, smoking the
Well,
dude. Just wanted to show off the final puffs before you got going. But thank you so
yeah.
much, Dog Doctor, for showing off the garden. Always great having you. Love seeing that super freak, keeping that thing alive, and all the cool new genetics and everything you get to have on all those different awesome tents you got going on over there. Cheers to you.
Thank you.
Great having you, and great having Smot and Crispy as well. And to our only remaining panelists, before I pass it to you, I will say shout out to Okie Grower who jumped out. But last and certainly not least is Noah the Grower.
Yeah, I had a great time checking everybody's stuff out. I got some really cool stuff, some new stuff in my garden. I'm gonna probably try and show it off next week. The NFL playoffs one, as I put in our group chat, I didn't know if I was gonna come on, but the Cowboys game got a little out of control, so I thought, what the heck, I'll come on and I got a new sunset sherbet cross with Girl Scout cookie, and then I actually got the original Girl Scout cookie. I've grown it before, but I kind of it's if anybody's ever grown it, the forum cut, it's kind of a low yielder, but I'm taking on the challenge, and it's actually doing pretty well, and I'm excited here, and then I'll show off my garden next week. But yeah, I'm Noah the Grower with two E's. I posted a picture of the wedding cake that I had, and I'll post some of this sunset sherbet cross I got. I'll see you over next week.
Always great having you, Noah. And I think even though we talked about like how cookies just sort of bottlenecked the pool a little bit, it's because it was so good. It got hype because like to
Oh
this
yeah,
day, it's still like when I smell it in the air, like when my wife smokes it, I come in, I go, damn, what are you smoking? That smells fucking amazing. Like even the smoked cannabis smells fantastic. The ground up or even flower smells great. It is a low yielder. It's a little bit finicky if you give it too much light, a little bit too much nutrients. If you don't clean up the bottom of the plant, it can tend to harm. So it's sort of like a Ferrari in a sense, you know. If you know how to drive it and tune it up, you can get it to go high speeds, but there's also some accidents that can come along with that if you're not sure how to handle it. So it's one of those things. I consider it one of the sort of classics at this point. I think it came out in the 2000s, so it's almost going on 20 years at this point. It'll be like a classic car at 25 years or something like that. But I think that it has been overbred into some of the stuff, even though like what Noah was talking about is probably fire, the Sunset Sherbet cross that he just mentioned to the Girl Scout cookie. I like a lot of the cookies, like as you'll find out in 50 Strains of Purple, there is a lot of cookie lineage in there because even though a lot of it's related, there's some distinctions that really make each one subtle and great and unique. Like biscotti and gelato do taste different than cookie, just the original Girl Scout cookie, the forum cut. I love the forum cut. It's one of the best strains for my arthritis, and it's definitely fire. So it got its hype for a reason, just like all these other really famous popular cuts, Gorilla Glue, Chem, and all these other things that if you ever get the chance to try the real deal, grown right, you'll realize that the
that's
hype
got
is
German poison in it, doesn't it?
So yes, sir.
Yeah.
it really I have a few different takes on the Girl Scout cookie that is too long-winded to get into on the last minute here, but we'll have to talk on another show about the whole lineage behind that. Now, it might even break out a copy of 50 Shades of Green because I gave some of the different uh, guesses and thoughts, and I think that I'm pretty far leaning away from certain mainstream ideas on that one. So we'll talk more on that in the future. But I am at Jack Greenstock. If you do want a copy of that book, 50 Strains of Green, it's available on 50strains.com. Highlights 50 different strains of cannabis. And 50 Strains of Purple will be coming out, where I'm going to be covering strains like Girl Scout cookie that turn purple and the lineages and who bred them and what made them up and all that good stuff. So I'll get in deep dives into that kind of stuff. But you could also get some seeds if you want the Velvet Punch. If you're in the US, I'm going to be doing a 24% off sale for 2024 through January, maybe through February as well, on all the US orders. So shout out to everybody who listens. We really appreciate your support. We do have an amazing chat. I'm really humbled sometimes by some of the people that, to me, like before we had the show or I saw them in the community, I like had respect for these names, and now they're hanging out in our chat. And it's even the cool new people, brand new people, people that have been around the community for a while. It's just humbling to have every single one of you. Seeing over 100 names, 100 people on the thing, and our chat just flies and flies. Even on the non Q&A nights, it's like I can't even keep up anymore sometimes. But I always love going back, at least watching it one time, seeing all the people that are in there interacting. Show's all about you guys, really. And we just come here to hang out with such a great crew and community, each other, and all the panelists and the people that listen, both live and like Spartan said, 99% listenership on the podcast. So you guys are really dedicated wherever you're at, school, work, whatever it is, in the garden. Cheers to you all listening. Even the people on YouTube, if you can only make it for 30 minutes, maybe you catch the rest of it at a later date, whatever it is. You don't even have to listen to the whole show. Even if you just listen for a few minutes, we got much grower love for all you. So grower love, keep it growing, and we'll catch you all next week. Cheers. You can find me
Grows
Jack
love.
_Greenstock on Twitter. I forgot to shout that out. I guess it's X now, and Jack Greenstock on Instagram. Cheers, everybody.
There's love,
Keep
everyone.
growing.